Okay, we are going to start now. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wa atammi taslim ala nabiyyina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wa tabi'ina lahum bi ihsanin ila yawmiddin. Welcome back to our weekly lecture of Islamic Economics Association, Nabil Iqtisad al-Islami of Kuwait University. So we are going to have a very important session today on the importance of IT system in Islamic banking operation. This is a part of our activities and lectures, events of Islamic Economics Association, which usually focuses on the various topics and fields related to Islamic banking and finance. And we are trying to promote Sharia compliant finance models, modules, strategies. And also we are focusing on some contemporary issues and other fields and relevant topics to Islamic banking and finance. So, distinguished guests, our brothers and sisters, we are very much pleased to welcome you all to today's session. And today's session is going to be a kind of interactive session. We do have two experts in Islamic banking and finance in IT. So the speaker, Mr. Lokesh Gupta. Let me introduce Mr. Lokesh. He is the co-founder, RM Applications SDN Berhad, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. He is actively involved in various projects undertaken by FIS in the area of risk management and Basel compliance, asset liability management, and treasury. Being part of RMA, the investment involvement is largely in the area of remittance solutions and Data Mart and vehicle inspection management solution, project management interface development for core systems, ETL, and tailored Data Mart development, and report development for various conventional and Islamic financial institutions in Southeast Asia. So we have also another expert who is replacing Dr. Razali. So this is also our honor to welcome Associate Professor Dr. Nazima Hussain, who is Associate Professor at the Finance at Azman Hashim International Business School, University of Technology, Malaysia. And she was a former director of business administration, responsible in managing postgraduate level programs, including MBA, DBA, and PhD. She earned BSc in finance from Arizona State University, MSc in Islamic Economics, Banking, and Finance from Loughborough University, and PhD from Durham University. So she has been also panel member, led various program research grants and consultancy projects. And she has more than 40 article publications. So indeed, this is very much an honor for us to have two very renowned and scholars, experts in Islamic banking and finance. So first of all, let me invite Dr. Nazima Hussain to moderate this session along with our Mr. Lokesh Gupta. Please welcome.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Muhammad Mahyuddin, for the nice breeze on us both. I'm actually delighted, to be here. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi and a very good afternoon in Kuwait to all ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for coming into this webinar session. Before I proceed, I would like to pass salam regards from my college, the expert and reference person in Islamic finance at Azman Hashim International Business School, University Technology Malaysia, Dr. Haji Razri Lamri. He is supposed to be here, but unable due to other commitments. So I'm taking this as last minute replacement actually, okay? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to be with all of you in these webinar sessions. We have the expert in IT solution and system for Islamic banking from RM Application Sendirian Berhad, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, Mr. Lokesh Gupta. Before we proceed further, let me brief a bit, okay, on how the session will be run. It will be run on 3 segments. Okay, we will start with the presentation by Mr. Lokesh, which will take about 30 minutes. Then I will be forwarding questions to Mr. Lokesh. To continue on, we will follow with the Q&A sessions. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we listen to the expert of the day, Mr. Lokesh Gupta, let us recap a bit on the key point of Islamic finance. The world financial system now must take into considerations the development of Islamic finance because the growth is becoming more and more unprecedented. The development in 2011, the total asset of Islamic finance is about 1.3 trillion USD. If we look in 2020, it has increased to 2.7 trillion USD. If you look at the Muslim world population data, the Muslim population has increased around 20%, okay, from 1.4 billion in 2008 to 1.9 billion in 2020. If you were to examine on the growth rate of Islamic finance, even though pandemic, COVID happened, the growth rate of Islamic finance still remained at double digit. Which is, if you look at in 2006, it is at 29.7%. In 2020, it's at 10.7%. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are in the era of digitalization and fintech. Islamic finance also has embraced the changes. As we all know, the IT system, the fintech system play a very vital role in sustaining the growth, including Islamic finance. Ladies and gentlemen, okay, fintech do not carry any halal or haram status. We have to note this, okay? It's only a tool, okay? If we use it for good, good lah. Okay, lah is in Malay, okay? So good lah means, okay, it will turn out to be good, okay? If we use for bad, bad lah, okay? So it's a tool only, a tool, okay? That Islamic finance has to embrace it for efficiency. Otherwise, it will be left behind. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is why today we are going to share the knowledge on how Islamic banking system operation has been assisted with the IT support system. We are lucky here, okay, today we have one of the senior IT expert system, okay, Mr. Lokesh Gupta. Mr. Lokesh has been in Malaysia for more than 20 years. He always support banking. He also got the certification from IPFIM, okay. I myself also don't have, okay, but Mr. Lokesh has, okay, and he has a number of books in Islamic banking. In short, okay, he has a very high competency in the area. He will present to us on the importance of IT system in Islamic banking operations. Okay, well, Mr. Lokesh, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Dr. Nazima, for such a warm introduction, and thanks, Dr. Mohideen, as well, for giving me this opportunity to come and present to all of you for sharing whatever I know. I know you have been positioning me as an expert, but I can tell you I'm still learning. The way the industry is developing, the way things are evolving, every day something new is coming. And I can still say that I'm still not there. I can say that I know everything. So I may know only the fraction of it, but definitely I will share with you my experience, what I have learned. In the past, like just now as Dr. Nazima mentioned, I started my career 20 years back, where I joined with Citibank as a banker. And then somehow I got an opportunity to be in Malaysia. That's where actually at first I heard about Islamic banking. Just let me give a brief intro on this part first. So I was quite surprised. What is this Islamic banking? Because I'm coming from India, let me be very honest, and we never had Islamic banking over there, So for me, it was something totally new. Then I started doing my own research on Islamic banking and all. And that's where I get in touch with IFIM, and that's how I came to know N.T. Grassley. So N.T. Grassley is my guru. Let me be honest with you, and it's an honor to share the podium with him, but unfortunately he's not there, but I'm happy at least Dr. Nazima is here as well. So he basically is the one who helped me in learning the basics, the fundamentals, and then I got so engrossed into it. And then I start learning more and more in deep, because being an IT professional, more from the business point of view, I want to understand what exactly Islamic banking is. Then only you can design the system. Then only you can automate the operation. If you don't have understanding, you can't go beyond. That's why I always say, first, we need to know the fundamentals. If you're not clear about the fundamentals, forget about everything. If you don't know ABCD, you cannot come up with a sentence, simple, so the layman term. So that's how I started picking up on Islamic banking, and I got a very good opportunity to work with some few banks over here as a consultant, where I help them in implementing the systems, as like Dr. Mohideen explained, few of them, in the area of core banking, in the area of risk management, in the area of cross-border payments, and now we're doing quite a lot in the area of investment banking as well, and the list keep on growing. So yes, it has given me a quite good exposure on various domain and so-called various verticals of the Islamic banking. So today my intention is to share with you. I will try to go very slow because sometimes I tend to go fast. So please don't hesitate to stop me in between, okay? Let's make it an interactive session. And I have kept my slides very basic or very simple, because some of you may or may not have a background in the IT. But the objective which I want to achieve over here is, after this session, at least you should have understanding of how a system operates in a bank and where actually they are heading to right now. Like as Dr. Nazima clearly mentioned, that we are talking about the era of digitalization. We're talking about people are moving everything into digital era. So same thing is happening for the Islamic banking systems as well. So I will touch base on it, and then please feel free to ask me any questions. As I said, I want it to be an interactive session. Yeah. So let's start. Okay, fine. The introduction is here. So okay, as I said, right. First, I want to start with the basic. So basic, I'm sure most of you are aware of it. I'm just trying to touch on it, because this is very important for me, or even for everyone. Anybody who's going into Islamic banking, they need to understand what are the fundamentals, or what is the foundation of Islamic banking. Just now, as Dr. Nazima also mentioned, permissible and non-permissible. The same thing, I just classify into prohibition and what it promotes. So when we talk about what it prohibits, so prohibits point of view, we talk about, of course, we all know it's interest is the one of the element, which definitely is a big no when it comes to the Islamic banking or Islamic finance. Then, of course, from there, we talk about into any kind of the gambling is prohibited, any kind of speculation is totally prohibited. And the garar, for example, you're trying to sell any asset which doesn't exist. So uncertainty is strictly big no when it comes to Islamic banking. But on the contrary, what it promotes, which is something which we all need to look into, is the profit sharing. That is one of the key elements of the Islamic banking, which differentiates Islamic banking from the conventional, is because there is no interest element over here. We're talking about either from the deposits point or basically investment point of view, is like entrepreneur or an investor kind of relationship. So where it's all about profit sharing, where if I have some kind of skills, the bank acts as an investor, they pump the money, or they like in the way we talk about venture capitalists in the kind of venture capital model. They pump in the money, and the entrepreneur uses skill to grow the business, to develop the business and earn the profit. And then the profit is being shared among both of them. So in a way, what it generates or what it promotes is, it's basically bring equality in the society. It's more like like I call it a socially responsible development, where it's not only the rich is getting rich and the poor is getting poorer. So there is an equal chance for everyone to grow, to promote, to develop, And then again, we're talking about social development. We're talking about economic development. So which is very much important. It's not only about only one set of people or only one set of so-called group of people only should enjoy the all benefit. And last not but the least, we're talking about is money has basically it's just a medium of exchange. It's not doesn't have any intrinsic value. So that's where it differentiates totally from the conventional side. So once we have understanding of it, right? So what we understand is Islamic banking is not only about deposits and loans. Yes, of course, the products are the same, but the way it functions is different because we cannot deviate from this principle when it comes to any kind of product or any kind of services. And then it becomes very important as well, because when it comes to Islamic banking, we are talking about any kind of product, it has to be in compliance, in line with the Sharia principles. And these are basically the framework of the Sharia principle, which we have to follow. And then same thing going to happen is when you even doing a system or doing any kind of product or any kind of service that has to be endorsed by a Sharia scholar. If the foundation is not clear, then no way, we can convince the Sharia scholar that this particular or from the governance point of view, that this particular product or service is totally in line with the Sharia principles, right? So now, after understanding the fundamental, okay, so this is basically on the Islamic principles, you can say. Then we go into the Islamic banking model, okay. It is fine. Some people can say it's similar to the conventional banking, but I will definitely argue on it and I say, no, it is different. Now, how it works is, for example, yes, similar to the conventional banks, we have source of funds, which we talk about. We call it CASA in the banking language, current account, saving account. Yes, we get the funds. So how even Islamic bank also get the funds from the so-called either investor or from the customer is basically through the CASA. That's one way of getting it. But second thing which differentiates the Islamic bank from the conventional is general or special investment account, where actually over here, I gave you an example just now of an entrepreneur and an investor model, where actually the bank is taking the money, okay, and then bank is investing the money into either into general assets or could be special assets. Special asset or investment could be maybe into the real estate, could be maybe into the plantation sector, or maybe could be into some kind of sukuks, which are very much driven by, let's say, by the natural resources. So similar to those. So you have this differentiation, which normally does not exist in the conventional banking. And it's where the differentiation starts when it comes to Islamic banking. And then, of course, there is shareholder funds, which is quite normal or common among the conventional bank as well. Now, as you can see, then they create a different kind of pool of funds. One is called generic pool funds. So generic pool general pool is basically they're taking the funds from CASA, which is coming into this general pool. Then again, from this general investment account, the fund comes over here. But then they also have a special investment account, which has to go into special pool because they need to have clear understanding or they need to have clear transparency for whatever funds which have been received is being invested into the special investment, so-called, as I mentioned, gave the example of could be plantation, could be real estate, could be sukuk. So they have to have a separate segregation for it. So they can't mix this fund into general funds because there they have a special returns which has to be tagged or which has to be identified only from those investments. And then last not but the least, we are talking about is the statutory funds, which is largely the central bank, which impose on the banks. They need for the liquidity purpose, they need to have something called like we call cash reserve ratio or the statutory ratio or the reserves, which they need to keep it in the bank to make sure they are liquid, where actually they can honor the responsibility of, because when you have a current and saving account, they can withdraw the funds. So they need to have sufficient funds to make sure they can honor the liability in case if the customer comes and asks for the funds, which they can withdraw. Now, whatever is the funds or the pool they have created, it basically goes into the investment. So investment could be like financing, could be trade financing. Okay, investment over here, as I gave example of the plantation and also for the real estate. Then we also talking about treasury. So treasury is largely dealing with the money markets, could be even for the bonds, which we call in the Islamic banking is sukuk. So all these are basically where the bank will go and invest the money. Now, after this investment, basically the profit will be derived, profit or loss, possibly. Of course, it can be both sides, So whatever is it, so now you can see. So there's a clear differentiation over here. Once they have this profit over there, because the special fund only going to investment, then this profit is being shared with the account holders. So now you can see they distribute the general depositors, which is the CASA. Then again to the bank, which is basically, of course, they have the shareholder funds, so they need to give dividend, and then the special depositors. So special depositors are no one but the special investment account. So now you can see this actually differentiates in principle the conventional bank and Islamic banking, the operation model. I'm not talking about the principal perspective, but I'm talking from the operation perspective. So if you look into it, if anybody can see this diagram, and this is something actually, when I published my book in around 7 or 8 years back, I actually put this particular diagram over there. So it's a very way to identify that Islamic banking is all about asset and contract driven, which is not popular in the conventional banking. In the conventional banking, we talk it from the product driven, and product may or may not have any underlying asset. But when it comes to Islamic banking, we're talking about asset because we're talking about buy and sell. We're not talking about, exchange of money over here. We're talking about buy and sell. And we're talking about the contracts. When we talk about could be murabaha, could be mudarabah, because those are the Islamic contracts which we practice. So any underlying asset, any kind of muamalah transaction is basically attached to a contract to make sure both there's a clear transparency among both the parties for what exactly is the business, or what exactly is the revenue sharing, or what exactly is the profit sharing they both are getting into. So this is something which is unique. So what is unique over here is the transparency. It's very much transparent to the customer or to the investor what exactly he or she will get when she puts the money. And again, when it comes to special fund pool, they know that this is particularly the respective investment or where the funds going to be invested into. And again, when it comes to the general funds of pool, they all know it's governed by the Islamic banking principle, where they will not invest into any kind of asset which is which is non-permissible. So non-permissible is like maybe related to anything on the gambling, or maybe related to alcohol or the non-permissible activities. So this is where the whole model brings the trust to the customer, saying that yes, it's in line with the principle of Islamic banking. Okay. Now what happens? So of course we spoke about the model, which is very much buying and selling or the contract driven. Then why, to make sure we have a complete transparency, IT solution is must. Why must? Very first thing I put over here is Sharia compliance. Why Sharia compliance? Because, right, if you remember my first slide, when I spoke about there should not be any element of garar. So when I say garar means, for example, when we talk about any kind of financing, okay, in Islamic banking, it's all about buying and selling. There's an underlying asset over there, which the bank may buy and then sell back to the customer at a profit. So the asset has to exist when the bank get into the agreement or into the transaction. So that compliance has to be there. How you can ensure or assure that particular compliance is being met is only through system, because system will have a proper trail. When did the bank buy the asset? Okay, and at what price? And then at what price the bank sold the asset to the customer? And then what kind of installments, or what's the selling price of the asset? So those are things are very crystal clear from the system perspective itself. So whenever there is a Sharia audit or any kind of compliance requirement comes in, system plays a major role, because system is the one which can provide the detail or the trails of how this transaction has been executed, and which is one of the foremost important element when it comes to Islamic banking. Then, of course, we're talking about security. As we all know, we're talking about a world where actually there could be cyber attacks, could be user security, could be the customer data protection. So that becomes very important. We are talking about digital era. We are all talking about frictionless user experience. We're talking about how easy for the customer to go and perform the transaction. It could be either using digital device, or it could be through branch, or it could be even through channels. Like, I'm sure even if we are digital, we still use ATMs. We still go to the ATM to withdraw the money. So end of the day, these all boil down to the user experience. This only is possible when we have systems in place, because we can't do it manual. Of course, a relationship does matter when it comes to we talk about brick and mortar model. But again, when it comes to service point of view, more and more customers are going towards a digital experience. They're quite okay to just use the digital lobby, which could be like comprising of ATM machines, cash deposit machines, or kiosks for them to perform a transaction. And the next one is the functionality and the flexibility, because as Dr. Nazima mentioned, right, things are evolving. We are, the way the digital era is catching up, new products, new services, new expectation. So there has to be flexibility to expand the functionality. And that only can happen if you have a system. If you have a good system, then only you can roll out new products, new services. You can come up with the new kind of business models, which actually is in line with the customer expectations. That's why now we are talking about fintechs. Why fintechs are able to perform or outperform the conventional banks or the traditional banks is because they're able to offer the service where actually they can offer financing maybe in a matter of a few seconds, or maybe in a matter of 1 day, or maybe a half a day, or maybe the instantaneous as well, which other banks or the traditional model may or may not be able to. So that's where one of the distinct, the functionality and flexibility take place. And then analytics and reporting, without, even if I have tons of data, if I'm not able to do the visualization of the data, I'm not able to perform any analytics, it doesn't give me any results. I will be totally blind. I don't know what kind of customer I'm serving. I don't know who are the customers. I don't know how long it takes to perform a transaction. I don't know how many rejections are happening. I don't know how much is my exposure to the interest, or sorry, exposure to the profit, which I need to pay to the customers. So all those things, we need to have a visualization of the numbers, so that only can happen when we have analytics and reporting in place. And then scalability. As we know, if you go for any kind of system, or even from the business point of view, business goes always on the growth side. We always take a, and then the system has to cope up, or system has to provide that kind of means where actually the banks or financial institution can expand, their services, can expand the customer base, can expand the customer volumes, can handle the big volumes, the payments, etc., etc. So scalability is more towards how you can handle the growing large volumes. Now, the one thing which cut across among all is, I think, which we all are very used to right now, is we look forward for anytime, anywhere, and affordable. So when I say affordable, because of the charges, we're talking about charges could be for payments. We're talking about charges maybe for cross-border transfer. We are talking about charges maybe for using the ATMs, which may not belong to the respective bank to withdraw the funds. So these are things which normally the customer always look for. Then, of course, we're talking about the customer-driven products and services. Now, we're not talking about any more generic products. If you look into it, the market is shifting. The market is shifting towards custom or tailored products, especially now, for example, from the individual, or we can call it retail or peer-to-peer customers, or we're talking about SMEs, we're talking about corporate. Each of them, they have their own needs, okay, own specific needs. So those needs need to be addressed. And then again, the point which I just stressed on in my previous slide, which is transparency and traceability. This I always say is one of the key important part of it, because this is not only required from the Sharia point of view, but also from the audit point of view, where actually you can track what exactly happened from the system perspective, when the account was opened, when the transaction was performed, when the transaction was rejected, why the rejection happened, etc., etc. Now we're talking about no more manual operations or semi-manual. So we are talking about, robotics, we're talking about AI, we're talking about digitalization of the entire bank operations. Because now we're talking about that where the action can be performed even with the minimal human intervention. The idea is to increase the processing time. The more manual operations are there, the more longer it takes to process any kind of either account opening or the transaction creation, or maybe the payment processing, which I also covered in my next point, which is straight-through processing. Everybody's looking for real time. I don't want to wait. People don't have time to wait for anything. They just want everything to be done instantaneously. So that's where the straight-through processing comes into the picture. And then, as I mentioned, innovation, it's ongoing and it's never ending, because the industry is dynamic. Industry is changing. Now, for example, in the past 3 years, especially in the COVID era, we have learned a lot about digital, which earlier people may or may not thinking about it. Now everything is digital. Even ordering food is digital. Even making payments, everything is digital. We don't go into cash base anymore. Then we're talking about the most important is the regulatory compliance as well. So now you can see for Islamic banking, the another not to say challenge, there are two major compliance which comes into picture. In conventional banking, they only need to comply with only the regulatory, which is a so-called from the standard central bank point of view. But when it comes to Islamic banking, they need to also comply with Sharia. So they have to comply with these two of these. That also is one of the additional factors which come into the picture when it comes to the Islamic banking, which is not commonly seen when it comes to the conventional bank. So you can see. So this is where actually you can understand why there is a need for the IT solution. Now, if you can see, and maybe some of you may have seen this. So this is standard architecture, which even now also is being practiced, to be honest. Most of the banks, they're still following this channel kind of architecture, where they have a delivery channels. So delivery channels is like, I'm sure most of you are aware, like branch, point of sale. For example, when we go to any kind of shopping mall, like this one, where we swipe our cards, mobile banking, internet banking, ATM. Service outlet could be maybe, like agents as well. On the cash management functionality is largely for SME and corporates. So they are connected to the core system. So core system comprising of deposit, financing. So these are all the banking products. So I will not go in detail over here. And then on the down, you can see there's a reporting to central bank, AML, and this one. Then you can talk about payment gateways, because of course, banks cannot work in silo. So they need to work with the third-party partners or third-party payment processors, which could be either governed by central bank, which may differ from country to country, or could be owned by some third parties, or could be owned by an association, depends upon it. Then, of course, on the top of it, the banks have another so-called systems like finance origination, which is more towards creation of new application. Treasury is one of the key part, then agent banking, or these are on the compliance point of view. So these are typical architecture which you will see in any banks. But now what is happening is, as I said, in the past few years, the technology is also changing a lot. The banks are evolving. And as you can see, the conventional counterparts are also now going and looking into the new digital era. And then there are a lot of non-banks, which I can call as a fintechs, who have come into the picture, where they've tried to change this entire, not to say entire, but in a way, they have created a new space or created a new so-called direction into the ecosystem of the so-called financial system as well. So now what is happening is, maybe I can just simplify it in a simple manner. We have a traditional banks, which we are maybe talking about, even still now we have it, which is largely based on brick and mortar based model, which is like, we can go to the branch, they can have, they're normally backed by large financial institutions. Like, for example, let's say, if I can give an example of Kuwait Finance House, it's also like a bank, which is actually owned by the large financial institution. They have branches, and they also have online, mobile, digital channels to serve the banks, to serve the customer, sorry. Okay, so they will fall into the traditional bank, but of course, with all the digital channels and everything. Now, there's another breed which is coming, is only digital banks. So these digital banks, how they differentiate from the traditional bank is, they don't have physical presence. They are largely the institutions, and again, could be backed by a large financial institution or the investors, but they only have online banking and mobile apps, where actually you can just open an account with them, digitally onboard, doing a eKYC, and then you can get your account. Then you can start using their, like QR-based payments. You can make payments, you can do withdrawals, and you can apply for financing, and you can get and then you can keep on paying the installment. So for anything, any kind of assistance, you can get to the contact center, or they may have some agents where you can get yourself any kind of clarification or to serve. But they don't have their own branches. There's no physical branches over here. But then now the new era is of neobanks, or we also call it as banking as a service provider as well. They're basically 100% mobile startups, which actually they may be or may not be owned by a large financial institution. Definitely, they have their own online banking and mobile app. But how they differentiate themselves as well is, they provide basically API-based platform. API is nothing but how two systems can talk to each other. So what they do is, they basically provide a platform where anybody, whoever want to launch any kind of products, they can utilize them. For example, let's say I'm a company and I want to make payments. Normally what happened is, I go to the bank, I use their mobile banking or online banking to make a payment. But neobanks, what they differentiate is, they can give me a payment API, where actually my system can talk to the bank system directly to initiate a payment. I don't need to use their online banking or mobile apps. So this is basically, we're categorizing under banking as a service, or we also talk about embedded finance. So these are the terms which you keep on hearing. So now, as you can see, so if you see the clockwise, we're going from traditional to digital to neobanks. So that's how the industry is evolving. The technology also is evolving. And again, even the Islamic banking also evolving. Now, Islamic banking understands, most of the players also understand, this could be a good opportunity for them, because they don't want to compete with the conventional counterpart on the brick and mortar based kind of model. What they can offer is, they can offer this kind of model where actually anybody can connect and utilize the platform to offer any kind of, basically to digitize any kind of service. It could be payments, it could be cross-border payments, it could be currency, it could be exchange of currencies, it could be even offering of financing. where actually I can be an agent, where actually I can connect to the bank platform and say, fine, I want to offer financing to my own customers. And then it's basically the backbone is coming from the bank, from the Islamic bank, which is basically running on the neobank platform. So you can see the things are evolving. We're not talking about anymore the brick and mortar based kind of model anymore, or even the digital banks are evolving as well. Of course, digital banks is the new wave. Now, quite few license has been given, largely maybe to the e-payments provider or e-wallet provider. And now from there, it's evolving towards the banking as a service now. So now how you can see the shift is happening is, so this is a traditional one, which you talk about secured, quite heavily regulated and controlled. Like, for example, we talk about current account, saving account. So I try to show when it comes to open banking, how things are evolving. So now we're talking about current account, saving account. Now we're talking about saving and investment, which could be backed by a wallet, which is basically offered by the fintechs. Even the telcos are also now offering a wallet where actually you can save, you can basically do the saving of, you can create a wallet and you can save your funds over there, and they also can give you the profit as well. Then of course we're talking about low returns principal protected deposit. So now what is happening is most of this platform, they're giving better returns compared to the conventional or to the traditional banking platform. Then again, they are, when it comes to the remittance or cross-border payments, they don't use the traditional channels like SWIFT. They basically use a cross-border payment platform, which could be using direct connection with the respective banks for making a payment, or instead of using any intermediary, they go direct. So they have a cost saving over there and the speed is faster. For example, now I'm sure if you can see in the cross-border payments, when we were using the traditional channel, which are largely SWIFT driven, it can take at least 1 to 3 days to make a payment. But then on the other side, we have models like Western Union, MoneyGram and all, where the money is done instantaneously. And now banks are also shifting toward that kind of model. Why they also can offer that kind of model where actually under their own brand, which can allow them to do the cross-border payments, which could be for even for so-called retail customers or even for corporate customers, could be instantaneously. And it's happening because they understand if they rely on SWIFT, they're losing on they don't get better rates. And again, it takes quite long to process and there could be some lending charges. Then again, earlier we used to talk about commission-based product, but now they don't talk about commission-based. Now we talk about white label products. For example, when these banks, they're offering insurance, so insurance are basically, they come up with the white label where actually you can offer basically the insurance product under your own name, or maybe with the crowdfunding, Then the bank guarantee, which is more towards like real estate financing or working capital financing, or this something, another one. We were talking about cash management and the custody services. Now they're trying to go into the blockchain or digital assets. I'm not talking about cryptocurrency over here, which could, digital asset could be just a token as well. And then basically we're talking about cloud-based ledgers and the cloud-based computing. So as you can see, the shift is towards now banking as a service. So when I spoke about BaaS, is basically banking as a service model, where actually we are trying to offer this kind of service. And this service can be consumed by anyone, as long as they have a capable system. And again, they have a proper compliance and proper license or proper so-called framework in their place, which allows them to perform those kind of transactions on their own, in their own capacity. So now we are not limiting that, okay, only if you have banking license, then only you can perform it. No, now things are evolving. The idea is to see how you can provide the financial inclusion, especially in the microfinancing as well. These are the this become a very good way of offering to the onboarding the customers who are underserved. And that's why the fintech are taking a quite big leap of faith as well in the market, where they are expanding the customer base. So now you can see investment point of view also, quite a lot of investment has been poured into the financial technology, especially in the Islamic as well. As you can see, there's a report which came out from the Global Islamic Fintech. And you can see it's projected to grow by 18%, which is again a double-digit growth, and up to 179 billion by 2026. So as you can see that more and more fintechs, or when I say fintech, is actually financial technology, which actually also can be consumed or can be also implemented by the Islamic financial institution as well, to capture those kind of customer base or to offer those unique service models. So now, so just to, I show you the architecture, which is normally is happening, but now, as I said, I'm talking about the open banking architecture or the BaaS architecture. So you can see it's totally different right now. It's all API driven. You have all those kind of channels. As earlier, we were not talking about social media We were not talking about something like a remote banking, or you were not talking about like a Salesforce, but actually it's like more like a CRM tools and all. Yes, but now more and more awareness is coming up where people are trying to, where the institutions are trying to capture on the social media, trying to get the data from the social media, using the data from the media to offer the customized or the custom product and services. Then they categorize into two kind of users. One is the internal users. If you, when I spoke about the external partners are basically the customers like corporate customers. So internal customers could be is the bank's operation team who is looking after the fraud. They're coming with the risk and compliance, looking after all the so-called the regulatory governance point of view. And then on the external party is basically you are basically expanding using the partner network, which could be anything, which could be fintechs, it could be partner banks or any kind of. And then they're all using the APIs. So what is happening is, as you can see, that the products are basically underlying. Products are not coming over here. So end of the day, product is more like a repository where actually you have a deposit services. So then you can create a different kind of product based on the need of the external partners, or based on the customers you're serving, which could be on the, and then we're talking about the financial services. Sorry, I have to supposed to change to profit rate. And then we're talking about the account services. Then these are basically the service layer, because even if you're digital or even if you're open banking platform, how you address the customer is very important. Because service and support is must, because sometimes the customer may get stuck at performing any transaction. And again, as I said, we're talking about digital banks. They may not have any physical presence. So a quality customer service is one of the key parameters or the key differentiator for them to differentiate them from the so-called conventional counterparts. Then we're talking about the party and transaction and log. So this is the so-called the architecture which is happening very much in the industry right now. Again, I spoke about from the open banking point of view, but again, it's going into the open financing, open deposit, or open cross-border payments, like even at my end as well. When I'm talking about the cross-border payments and all, we also perform this kind of architecture where we allow anybody to integrate with our platform to do the inbound and outbound cross-border payments. Because the idea is to give a flexibility or a platform where more and more people can connect without any so-called legacy, or without any kind of exclusivity, or without any kind of prior conditions. So the idea is to make it like open, so then they can utilize it and then they can create their own product and service on the top of it. So then from the importance point of view, as I said, IT system is definitely the backbone of any financial system. So it helps with covering all these kind of key points with the risk management, the cost optimization. I keep on harping on this part, gain the customer trust, because when everything is recorded in the system, no way, so it builds up the customer confidence, and it can't be so-called, can be altered or modified or can be changed, like customer support, product diversions, and then leverage on expertise in the regulation. Then we're talking about visibility of all the so-called partnership and everything. Then better distribution architecture. When I say distribution infrastructure is because now we're talking about cloud. We're not talking about any more physical servers. So we're talking about all the infrastructure is distributed, or maybe we're talking about blockchain as well. Then the idea is to, when you offer this kind of service, you are basically ensuring the stickiness. For example, I'm sure we all are using e-wallet apps these days. Now, most of us, even we have a banking apps, but when it comes to the payment, we try to use more e-wallet apps because it gives us more flexibility, where we can do the micro payments, the macro payments, and again, it's just a QR-based driven. And then again, we can use it at multiple places. And again, from the banking, so some like, of course, some of the banks are already embedded those kind of payment model as well, but some are still running only on the traditional mobile banking, and where actually I only can do account to account transfer, or I can do utility payments, or maybe I can do fund transfer to a third party, but I may not be able to do those kind of micro payments. So the stickiness may not be there at a time. And then of course, the banks are definitely trying to use the system to use it to generate more revenue, more transaction volumes, to achieve the economies of scale, and again, to offer more value to their customer. So this is, in a way, it helps the banks to provide a strong foundation, and using that foundation, they can serve their customer much better, and not also they can serve their customer, but also it ensures that they cannot compromise also on the compliance, whether it's a Sharia compliance or from the regulatory point of view. So with this, I conclude my session. Sorry, I went a bit fast because I was running out of time, but I will open the floor to Dr. Nazima to ask any question if she may have, and then we can open it to the to everyone, to all the participants to ask their question.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, thanks so much, Mr. Lokesh, okay, for the great informative, presentations.
Sure, welcome.
This structure, again, as I mentioned earlier, I should be forwarding the question, but I
Right.
think our participant can't wait to know more about you. Okay, if you were to look at the chat box, maybe you sound more Muslim than us all here. Okay, so I think you should answer this one, okay, before I forward my question. Okay, so they want to know whether you're Muslim or not.
No, actually, I'm not. I'm Hindu by religion.
See, okay, I'm very impressed, okay, with your information or about the Islamic finance. Okay, so we can move, okay, to the question. Okay, so I have several questions. Okay, let me forward the first one. Okay, so we know how crucial is the IT system, okay, especially in Islamic banking operation. So I want to know how the IT system can segregate customer Islamic fund, okay, from the conventional fund in a bank that offer both product.
Okay, that's a good question. Actually, if you remember when I presented my Islamic banking model, I tried to explain over there. See, what is happening is, let's say I can talk about from the Malaysian perspective as well. Malaysia got a product called Urea, it actually is a restricted investment account, So what happened is, in the restricted investment account, they take the funds from the customer, and then that funds have to be channeled into some specialized financing, or maybe some specific financing as well. So what they're doing is they basically create a portfolio of it, where actually they say, fine, they have achieved this fund from this particular portfolio, let's say ABC 1, 2, 3. And then whenever they are doing any financing, they tag that portfolio code to all those financing. So then it gives them a very clear understanding that this is for this portfolio, they have received this much of funds from the investor. And using this portfolio code, they basically did the funding or financing using this particular so-called under this portfolio, and what kind of returns they have earned. And then based on the returns, because of course, very clear cut, where they will use the bank's cost to deduct first. And then end of the day, whatever the profit comes out, it could be shared in the ratio of 70-30, 60-40, depends upon what has been agreed upon between both the parties. So in that case, as I said, so that's why again, I always say, go back to the fundamental. So the fundamental is how you segregate the fund, which is there is the basic part of the Islamic financing. And yes, I do understand sometimes some systems may do have limitation, because when they're accepting the funds, they may be accepting the funds from treasury, but they're not accepting it from the core banking, not from the current account to saving account point of view. But again, I just give you an example of the portfolio code. Normally, this is what is being practiced as a portfolio code to attach all the funding and all the financing. And then based on that, they come up with the returns, and then that's how it's being shared. So this is one simple example to visualize how you can segregate or how you can identify what kind of returns have been earned from a particular product, and then only you share with the so-called investor.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Yeah, thanks, Mr. Lokesh. Detail, okay. Okay, my next question is, I want to know more specifically on your experience. Okay, you have shared a bit. Okay, can you share further on as solution assistant provider for Islamic banking? Okay, dealing with Sharia committee of Islamic bank. Okay, what you actually have to face through, okay, your challenges, okay, when you do your presentation, what sort of expectation or requirement, so can you share to us on that?
Okay, good. So I will tell you the trick which I did. Yeah, normally I do actually, not I did, I do as well sometimes now also. So what happened is, okay, just now I think you also gave a very good example in the beginning of the session where we talk about permissible and non-permissible, right? But there's another one thing which is neutral. Okay, so permissible is something which we say, fine, it is permissible by the Sharia point of view or from the Sharia scholars point of view, where actually they validate saying that fine, all the rules, whatever, all the product features are in line with the Sharia principle. So it's called Sharia permissible. Non-permissible, which is very straightforward, where actually we cannot deal with any kind of transaction which have a gara or miser or any kind of non-permissible element involved over there. Normally, I try to talk more from the Sharia neutral. So when I say Sharia neutral, for example, I just gave an example of cross-border payment. In the cross-border payment, we are not talking about any kind of element of gara or miser or anything. It's only ujr. It's only a fee which we are charging. So there is no such element of non-permissible element over there. So when it's Sharia neutral, so that's how I normally, when I go to the Sharia scholar, when we present our papers or to get any kind of approval, I try to go from that perspective. And again, as I mentioned, always go back to the fundamental. The fundamental is basically the Islamic banking is all about trust and transparency. Okay, so transparency, how it comes, because we're talking about what we're talking about from the financing point of view is buying and selling, let's say. So buying and selling we're talking about is an asset. As long as you can clearly identify the asset, as long as your proper document trail which shows sale and purchase, as long as your proper timing or the logging of the event, when was it bought, when was it sold, and the last but the least is when you offer the financing to the customer, in the account, everything is clearly mentioned. What are the terms and conditions? So that all gives the entire so-called visibility, okay, from the end-to-end financing point of view. And of course, any kind of penalty which is involved, let's say, for example, 1% on the outstanding installment, etc., as long as it's clearly listed, explained to the customer, I think we are already in line with the Sharia's requirement. Normally what happened is the experience I have, as I said, right, you go to the Sharia committee or for any approval, and if you don't have the strong foundation, or you're not in a position to explain why you have done or why you've designed like this, that's where the issue happens. Sometimes what happened is, I'm sure you have come across this word called convergence. We take the product from conventional side, and then we try to tweak it here and there and all, and then we go back to the Sharia committee saying, fine, hey, why don't we launch this particular financing product in the market, because our other counterpart has already launched it. Why don't we make it Islamic? So that's where the challenge starts coming in. So normally I always say, put it down on the pen and paper, look into the basics, how you can align with the fundamentals, and then you go and present to the Sharia committee. Normally you can get approval. Same thing goes for the Bank Negara as well. When we go to the Bank Negara also for any kind of presentation, you need to have this properly done. Then only you can get obtain the approval.
Right. Okay. Thanks for the framework. Okay. Okay. Another one. Okay. From your point of view. Okay. How huge is the opportunity for IT system company to succeed in Islamic finance? And maybe you can share with us, okay, success story of any company that you have, because you have been 20 years in the industry.
Okay. So sorry, can you repeat the question again? One more time. Dr. Nazima, can you repeat the question?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. How huge is the opportunity? How huge? How big is the opportunity for IT system company to succeed in Islamic finance?
Oh,
okay. Maybe you can give example of any IT company which succeed in this area.
Sure. I think the opportunity is vast. As I said, right. Of course, I normally say sometimes when we brand it as Islamic and all. So sometimes they could be challenged, the non-Muslims, may or may not get attached to the product, So let's say talk from the Islamic point of view first. So opportunities are huge. In fact, like for example, I'm sure we all know Ethis. Ethis, they're doing Islamic crowdfunding. They're really doing very well. Basically they provide a platform where actually I can raise funds, which is in line with the Islamic principles. I think they also use Commodity Murabaha, if I'm not mistaken. And they also have a Mudaraba as well, which can be used to do the so-called financing. So that is totally in line with it. On the other side, we also have another company like Fintera, right? Yeah, I think Fintera, if I'm not mistaken. So they are basically also from Malaysia. What they're doing is they are going into Waqf funds. They're using the Waqf funds to do the investment into the plantation, into the real estate development. And then they are basically giving like a units, like a suku kind of thing, to the investor, and based on the returns, they're sharing the returns with them. So there are many companies who are very successful. So as I gave 2 examples to you. So these 2 are the one which come on the top of my mind. And again, then in Indonesia also you have a few, like I think Tukitaki, right? Not Tukitaki. There's another. I forgot the name actually right now. They're also doing the same kind of cash financing. Like for the day-to-day kind of expenses and all, and which is they're following the Islamic principle, and they're also doing quite well. And then not to mention, as I said, if we go to payments, as I said, there's a lot of so-called companies who are doing very well into the payment, even including ours as well. We are also into the B2B cross-border payments, and we can see the volume is growing. And again, we have customers, which are quite ranging from Muslims to non-Muslims to, and again, it is Sharia neutral as well, as I mentioned. So in a way, to categorize it, definitely there's a lot of potential.
Okay. Great
I
sharing.
think
Okay,
there is
so-
one more company, Fintel, I think. Fintel. in
Fintech
Malaysia. Fintel, yeah.
Hmm.
should be there, because there are many now, because sometimes the names keep on also changing as well, yeah. They keep on getting acquired as well, because now actually there's another one, Pay Halal as well. There's one more payment company
Yes.
which is only for halal payments,
Halal payments, right.
Yeah. So basically what they do is, they are also offering like a point of sale device, which actually can only allow to make payments only with which is the permissible so-called activities or the goods and services. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So next question. Okay, maybe among us here. Okay, among the participants, are those who want
Sure.
to be or excel in IT system. So my question is, what are the competencies needed by this individual or talent, okay, who want to excel in IT system, particularly in Islamic finance?
Okay, very good question. Okay, let me just tell you, I'm a commerce graduate and I'm a marketing and finance in master or MBA. So I haven't done anything in IT, to be honest with you. So I think I always tell everyone, IT is all about common sense. And again, as I said in the beginning also, it's all about fundamentals. If you know the business very well, if you know how the business operates, if you know the business model, but of course, I'm not saying that you need to know the entire business, but again, some specific area, let's say whether it's finance, whether it's marketing, whether it's operations, whether it's compliance, whether it's regulatory, and then you start building on the top of it on the platform where actually you can start visualizing it, how it works. By the end of the day, we're talking about end of the day, everything is was somehow or other it was manual. Now we need to make it automated. If you use your common sense, there's nothing rocket science over here. No need to understand the coding or the technology. Yes, of course, you may, when you're doing a designing, it may help when you know the technology framework which is available. But the important is to understand the business model. So for me, it's like this. There are two areas. One is because there are many roles in the IT. One is okay. One is basically the functional side, which I call techno-functional or functional consultant. So functional consultant point of view, you need to have a strong understanding of the business. Then only you're in a position to design the system. Okay. Second is I call it purely technical, which is more like a developer. So developer for them, they are more into the coding or development. So they may or may not understand the full view of it, but they will only understand a small view of it, the program perspective, where you break down the process into small pieces. And then based on that small piece, they need to do the development. So it all depends what is your area of interest. If your area of interest is business, means you want to be a functional consultant, or I can call it techno-functional, then you may or may not need the so-called development experience behind. Of course, if you have it, it's definitely a plus point. But again, it's not must. Like, for example, I can just tell you right now, now everything is the knowledge is very easily available. You can go to the YouTube, you can learn about Python, you can learn about machine learning, data science, anything. So idea is to get the basic or the fundamentals right, and then you can go ahead with any kind of role. So as I said, either functional or technical. So for functional, you don't need the development background. But for development, yes, that one you need the coding language. So it all depends upon it. So if you're looking to be a developer, then I will definitely recommend you learn the language. Now in the new era we're talking about is more towards Python. We are not, of course, we're still talking about the basic technology like Microsoft or maybe the Java, So that is the basic programming language. And again, from database point of view, we're also going into open database like MongoDBs and all. Again, from the conventional database still take a role, like for example, Oracle and SQL, So that is the way to go if you're going into the technical level. But if you're going into the functional, I think that this program is a very good program as well, where actually you're getting to know about the so-called at the overall level or the holistic level of the Islamic banking or the Islamic financial, so-called the operations, the processes, and again, how the product works. And the main important is how the product works, and then also on the compliance. So that is giving you a very good exposure towards it, which actually can start giving you input on, okay, if you have to have a system or you can play around, if you want to design a system or if you want to be a part of a system, then at least you will have the basic knowledge over there. And you can just get into the, start getting into the action over there. But for development, yes, you may or may not be in a position to immediately start work on it because that is more technical.
Right, yeah, we are reaching almost 6. Okay, so my final question to you. Okay.
Sure. Please.
Can you please tell us further about your company, particularly on how far your company has contributed to the development of Islamic finance?
Okay, that's pretty good. Okay. So I will not have any statistics with me, but I can just tell you, as we are serving quite a lot of banks, not only within Malaysia, but we are serving in Malaysia, Indonesia. So largely the Islamic financial institutions per se is largely from Malaysia and Indonesia. Other side, no. Okay. So there we have done quite a lot of projects with them, mainly in the area of compliance reporting, I can put it this way, more in the area of asset liability management, liquidity risk on the Basel reporting. So I can say that, and on the other side, we have been providing them a payment platform, the reconciliation platform on the SWIFT. So the contribution point of view is very difficult to quantify, but yes, I can say that we have been doing quite a lot of engagements with them, including now we have gone into eKYC and those kind of innovative products also, where we are helping the banks to onboard into the new kind of era of digital onboarding, which is towards eKYC and eKYB. So in that way, we have been contributing a lot, and especially also on the automation of payments and the automation of reconciliation. So these are the areas where we have been working and contributing closely with the banking institutions. And of course, we also have work in the area of treasury as well, because we have been implementing treasury solutions for our partners as well. And there, I can say like some of the names I can give it to you. We are attached to like MBSB Bank, Bank Islam, Mamalat. So these are the banks. We have a very good learning and we have a very good exposure, and I think we have contributed quite a fair bit on their automation of their treasury operation and also on their reporting automation as well. Okay.
Yeah, well, okay. That's wrap up on my questioning part. I'm happy to be here. Thanks, okay, for being here with us. Okay, we move to the next segment. Okay, which is Q&A sessions.
Sure.
I'll pass to Dr. Mohiuddin. Okay, because it's already almost 1 minute to 6 p.m. Okay, over to you, Dr. Mohiuddin.
Sure.
Yes. So, okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Associate Professor, Dr. Nazima Hussain from UTM for representing and replacing Dr. Razli Ramli. And in fact, these 5 questions were very important to know and to understand the fact of IT system and what IT system can contribute to Islamic banking operation, and what are the example of the companies working now in Malaysia. And in fact, Mr. Lokesh is working with his company, which is also contributing a lot. We understood the framework of IT system and a structure as well, as he explained very well. And I believe that all participants got the slides, and it will be helpful, very helpful to, understand and also to apply in the fields of their studies and maybe countries, nationalities, especially for those who are to be expert and researcher in Islamic banking and finance. And this is very interesting that Mr. Lokesh from another faith, but working for Islamic banking and finance, and he is understanding, mashallah. And you are from marketing to IT and Islamic banking and finance. So this is very interesting. I mean, this is inspirational. It's very, very inspiring as well for us. So I think if we work hard and if we have belief in what we are going to do in future, we can definitely reach to our destination. So in fact, we are very much honored and we are very much happy to have you, Mr. Lokesh, and also Dr. Nazima. And our also thanks to Dr. Razli for proposing this wonderful session. And that's why we thank you very much. If we still have few minutes, if there is any other questions from the online guest, we can respond to them, I guess. Mr. Basiro, Path Solutions has set up an Islamic fintech named iFin. Yeah.
Okay.
and Antara Salah. They are participatory banking institutions that have an Islamic orientation, especially in Morocco, and not Islamic banks that apply Islamic teachings. What is your opinion? Yeah, Mr. Gupta, Mr. Lokesh. Yeah. If you have any.
So Dr. Mohiddin, I didn't get the question.
I think she is asking about the Islamic orientation in institutions in Morocco that is not an Islamic bank that apply Islamic teachings. So that means I think that is working for practical field, not for teaching Islamic banking and financial courses.
Right.
This is what she is asking. What is your opinion in that?
So definitely, I think from the fintech point of view, basically from the initiative point of view, that's pretty good, because I think the practical exposure is very important, to be fair, because the way I look at it, right, a lot of us, for example, we can read the books, but until unless we are part of the practical aspects of the products or services, we will not be in a position to understand how that particular product or service perform. So in that case, for example, for any product, let's say we talk about Murabaha product, what kind of the basic so-called elements of the Murabaha product, which we talk about the asset or buy and sell, what kind of contract into the picture, how the profit is being computed, how in case of any kind of default, how the penalty is being charged. So those are things which come into the practical, which may or may not be covered into the theoretical part of it. So if we have any kind of such kind of institution or such kind of initiative where we have a platform which can give this kind of knowledge or awareness, because as I said, right, in the Islamic banks also, we notice a lot of times the tellers or the customer relationship manager may or may not have understanding of those minute details, and he or she may not be in a position to explain to the customer how this product behaves. So that's where the practical knowledge definitely plays a major role. And if somebody has coming up with this kind of product or initiative, where anybody can go and learn about it from practical oriented, not from the theoretical perspective, that will be definitely a quite good so-called blessing, or in a way, it will be very helpful in the professional career as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. So if there are any more question or comment from the online guest, so you may also raise your hand. You may also contribute. If you have any ideas, you may speak. We may allow you to speak if you raise your hand. So anybody, you can see many guests from different countries. Or if there are any question. So in fact, this lecture is also recorded in the YouTube channel of our Islamic Economic Association, and it's written in Arabic, not in English. Untitled Chapter Islamic. But if you write the topic in YouTube, the importance of IT system, you will get the link, and you may go through again to understand the lecture again. So I think there is no more question or comment from the guest. So we are going to conclude today's session here. On behalf of Untitled Chapter Islamic of Kuwait University, we would like to thank Mr. Lokesh Gupta for your wonderful presentation, for your time and effort, and for the service that you are giving to Islamic banking and finance for promoting this exceptional part of Islamic banking and finance in IT system. So we thank you very much. And we also like to thank Dr. Razli Ramli and Dr. Nazima Hussain for your contribution, for your presence. And inshallah, we are hoping that in very near future, we are going to meet again in any other sessions, inshallah, with another forum maybe. So we are very much happy for having you here. And our Special thanks to the management of Islamic Economic Association, especially Dr. Alal Abid, Director General, and other my colleagues, my friends. And lastly, our thanks to all online guests from all over the world for joining us in this session. And we hope to see you again soon. So Mr. Lokesh, if you have any few words, concluding words, please welcome.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for the warm, the feedback and the regards which you all are sharing with me. And so it's very motivating and encouraging me to again do furthermore in the area of Islamic finance. Hopefully I may be in a position to join more session as well with you guys, and I'm more than happy to share what I know. Because I always believe knowledge is meant for sharing. And sharing is caring, That's how we all can learn and we can grow together. That's very important.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lokesh. We will see you again. With that,
Sure.
we are ending here. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.